The aircraft must already have been burning like a torch when she hit the graveyard wall and burst wide open. The graveyard is on top of a hill, and when I was there an hour ago, bits of wreckage were still smouldering among the tombstones the plane had toppled like ninepins. Where she finally came to rest, the spot that marks the end of nearly 30 lives and a lot of expensive machinery, where she finally ended up was 3/4 of a mile away over another hilltop. The trail was dismally easy to follow. A great wide swathe of burned grass and scattered bits and pieces of airplane, twisted pipes, lumps of fuselage in the familiar blue and silver colours of Alitalia, here a bent air screw, there a bunch of tangled metal that might, heaven help us, have been anything at all when it left Shannon a few minutes before the crash. Not only is the grass in that field burned, the dewy grass, it's also churned up as if a regiment of troops had marched that way in the night. And here and there are great craters where the skidding lumps of metal dug their way into the mud. Among the mechanical wreckage is a lot of human stuff too. Overnight bags, novels in Italian, a child's toy bear, scraps of clothing, bits of leather, a cake of soap. And mixed up with all this are hundreds of turnips left out to feed the sheep that were in that field last night, many of which were crushed or burned to death when the plane came down the slope. At the far end of the hill is a hedge, with a great burned patch in its centre as if a flamethrower had gone through. And a half mile further on, down in a hollow, is the main wreckage, one wing to the right, the other 100 yards away, sticking out of the swampy ground. The smell of smoke is still there, in spite of a howling wind that's scattering Italian documents and bits and pieces all over the place. If the plane had not hit the top of that hill, it might have got into the air, or mightn't, I wouldn't know. If it had failed, though, it would have ploughed its way straight through a farmhouse that lay directly in its track, the farmhouse of the O'Dea family at Waverley House. All the O'Deas were out this morning helping. Here's one of them, a daughter, Irene. Here at Waverley House, I'm with Irene O'Dea, who actually heard it, saw it, and helped with it. What happened, Irene?
I returned home from a concert in Ennis at about 1:20. I was chatting to my mother in our bedroom. Next thing I heard the most terrible bang. I rushed to the hall door and all I could see was the countryside ablaze. It looked like it was an atomic bomb exploding in an airplane.
You knew it was a plane that was
Yes.
living through the airport.
So my brothers got up and we all rushed to the scene of the crash. There was terrible debris everywhere. And people, bodies here and bodies there and people dying. We passed over a lot of dead people. So on our way we picked up a little boy. He was the first one I came across. He was age about 4 and he apparently was uninjured. So it was a great thrill to pick him up and hand him to a bystander. So then we went to the wreckage and we tried to open their safety belts and we got them all to a nearby field. On the whole we rescued about 15, I'd imagine.
You did?
Yes,
Have
at
you
least
first
I
aid
helped
training,
him.
usually?
Well, I trained as a nurse in St. Vincent's Hospital.
You were the right woman in the right spot there.
Well, I don't know about all that, but we tried to do our best. Everybody was very helpful. There was a Renby dance also nearby, which was just breaking up. So they came along and they were indeed a great help. Some very young men, and they helped the stretchers.
I suppose people came from all over the countryside when they heard it.
Oh yes, all the neighbours, farmers and all came, and everybody did their best. Everybody forgot themselves and worked hard and just thought of those that were in the plane. Each passenger was looking for their relatives which were on board, and it was very sad to have to try to console them and tell them that they were all right when you hadn't a notion where they were.
They were all speaking Italian, I suppose.
Oh, that was a great disadvantage also, because it was very hard. I have no knowledge of Italian and I found it very difficult. There were also 2 priests on board, and they, of course, when they immediately asked for absolution, which they got. Father O'Houlihan and Father Comfort were quickly on the scene.
Yes.
So the next thing, the ambulances came from the airport and Dr. Flynn. So the rescue team did their full job.
The professionals took over after you'd done your stuff in the beginning.
Oh, well, one has to do it when you just don't know where you get the energy, but you just go ahead and do your best.
You had to cross ploughed fields and
yes, well, we have a Volkswagen, so it ploughed its way at a great rate, so, and my brother was good on the wheel, so we weren't long until we got there.
All the morning, sightseers have been trailing up the hill to the graveyard to watch the official people going down to the actual wreckage. Policemen, AA men, ambulance workers, Italian airline folk with long, dramatic blue overcoats. But now time's up, and this is John Ross at Shannon, returning you to the studios in Dublin.